Welcome to Public Space, a community dedicated to supporting individuals who have experienced religious trauma or find themselves in between and are looking for self-God as well as community. We exist beyond the four walls of colonized religion. Here, we create a safe and vibrant space where members can explore and share spirituality, stories, art, and intellectual inquiry through critical dialogue. Join us as we embark on a journey of healing, self-discovery, and creative expression. Together, we will foster a supportive community that empowers individuals to reclaim their voice, embrace their unique journeys, embody a Path-Maker archetype, and find solace and strength in the company of like-minded individuals.
All right. Welcome to the first gathering of 2025 Public Space. We are excited to be back to share, to communicate, to express, to listen. It's interesting because we're gathering in the theme of a full moon in Cancer. This full moon in Cancer actually is going to take place January 13th. And it is deeply emotional and intuitive. You know what I mean? So basically, this moon is sending energy to amplify our emotional awareness, right? Giving us opportunity to explore more healing and nurturing traits and components and energies because Cancer, amazingly, is all about that. If no one knows, that is symbolically the crab in the astrology chart. And if we look at the habits and patterns of a crab here on Earth, you see that they're very family orientated. They stay close together. So, whoever or whenever they came up with these symbols to correlate with these particular astrological times and meanings was on point because these things are still taking effect today. As much as we can try our hardest to argue that these things aren't real, there is substantial evidence to suggest that these things are very much real and have proven to be real time and time again. That's why they say billionaires follow astrology, right? So, getting back on track, getting ready for this gathering in this month to think about things. What we're thinking about is basically our emotional awareness. Where are we feeling? Where are we with feeling pain, suffering, excitement, pleasure, pridefulness? Where are we healing? Where are we trying to nurture ourselves? This is also a time to tap in and realign ourselves with our roots, our ancestry, right? This idea from African philosophy of Sankofa, returning to the past to retrieve things that are vital so that we can reimagine and recreate our future, not in a careless way, but in a very well thought out, divine way, right? This is also a time of heightened intuition, and from our intuition gives us great wisdom. And this is wisdom that's beyond books and beyond the things of the conscious realm, right? This intuition taps us or helps us tap into the unconscious aspects of our mind where the divinity, resides. A lot of people believe this, including Carl Jung, believe that the unconscious part of our minds was where God, divinity, source, was like a doorway, allowing us to stay connected to that and never be disattached from it. And so, that's why when we start to, follow or, go with what our gut feeling, quote unquote, is, that's our intuition, that very indescribable feeling inside of us. It's not necessarily in your stomach, but it feels around there. It's a feeling that we all feel that tells us to do things or not do things, say things, not say things, what to say and what not to say. It's really just like as if God just said, "Hold on, let me have a one-on-one with you," kind of thing. I like to think of it like that sometimes. That the universe is saying, "Hold on, Aaron, I got something for you. You're doing incredible, but I just want to add to what you're doing. I want to make it better. I love what you're doing. I want to safeguard you. So it takes a great deal of cultivation to begin becoming more intuitive, as well as becoming more emotional, especially from the stance of, like, in America, being a masculine figure, like a male. It's hard to imagine how we can express our emotions without feeling shame or guilt, because there's so many things put in place in society that, kind of push us to say, bottle that up. Don't talk about that, because whatever you identify with, that so happens to be a male patriarchal imagination of a man, you're not supposed to talk about your emotions. You know, you're not supposed to talk about those things that are indescribable. So, that's just an example. We also have a patriarchal imagination that suppresses intuition, wisdom, which is heavily associated with femininity. The oppression of feminine qualities, traits, as well as the gender itself, right? These are all by design, because if you allow these figures or these symbols that are correlating with intuition, wisdom, and femininity to actually sprout things, grow things, then patriarchy loses control. The colonizers then have no grip on what can happen and what can't happen. They lose control, and they don't want that. They want to control their ant farm or their plantation. And so it's important that we think about these things as we begin to reflect on these very dangerous yet sacred ideas. Let's be real; these are very dangerous things to talk about and express genuinely right now. In a time where surveillance is at its highest, and they are monitoring what we say and how we say things, and quite frankly, our ideas can become threats to those who wish to keep power and control. So let this be a space where you can momentarily, temporarily escape that. In 2025, let public space be that space that gives you a break from that, where we can talk about these things freely without fear of being penalized, judged, or ashamed. Um, so, with all that said, let's jump into it. Jasenia, what are you feeling? What are you going through? What are you thinking in this time right now?
Can you hear me? I think right now, like I'm just thinking about the things that I started, I guess you can say, like develop or focus on right when 2024 was like ending. I wouldn't say like New Year's resolutions or anything like that, but just, like any goal, a smart goal, and just trying to see if those things can be completed, and then if not, for me is fine. I used to be very, very hard on myself with that, and not getting so caught up in the trends. I think that has been something that before, especially in the past, I was having a lot of difficulty with, like trying to deal with the absence of family, friends, and things like that, harping a lot on just like this emotional, um, this awareness I had, because like I noticed I was very sad, I was in pain. But now, moving from that, like being aware that, there's still things that haven't been patched up, or, like there hasn't been like full clarity, uh, just how to move on with myself, and what does that look like? And so in my mind, like now, like I see like this is like a new blank page for me, especially like starting the new year and just leaving opportunity to really not put myself down for not meeting my own deadlines and things like that, because I would get carried away, and then that leads to just bringing my own self-esteem down and believing uh like what my ego starts to feed me, um but with all that said, like just making sure that I'm nurturing myself, and not much of having others fill that void for me. And yeah, like I think that's where I'm at. You know,
Yeah, definitely. We get what you're talking about. Yeah, hands down. Um, Even for myself, it's been emotionally heavy, in these recent months. And, it almost feels like I guess we can refer to it as emotional baggage, like just extra things that we're carrying, and it's heavy. Um, uh, Me as a child or a younger adult, naively, we would think, oh, if it's heavy, just toss it, you know? And we learn that, oh man, like just tossing things like that without sorting through those bags, you could be throwing away vital things. And so as we got older, to the point now where we're just more cautious, more thorough about what we're about to discard, or disregard. Um, because for me in my spiritual walk, we've noticed that the universe, God, spirit, has been in the small details. Growing up Christian, they always kind of promote the stories in the Bible as like this very elaborate, grand thing, and so as a child, we would think, well, if God was acting in our life, it should be a grand, spectacular thing, right? But the problem with that is we never saw that, and that never happened like that for us. Instead, God was working in the most smallest, most humble, most humiliating details. God was with me when no one else was perceived to be with me. You know, God was with me when we felt so low and so desperate that we thought ending our life would be the right decision. You know what I mean? So for me, we have more of a practical, everyday outlook about universe, God, being connected spiritually. And for me, as a Pisces, um, it's always very emotional because we're more sensitive to emotions and energies like that. Um, we live in a very cold world, very systematic. Um, it's definitely not rooted in humanity or being humane. So when you are exposed to this system for so long, eventually you start to feel numb, emotionally numb. And so when people want you to be excited and when people want you to be sad, you're confused. You're like, I don't know what to feel anymore. Or when people say, they love you and they do things that kind of contradict that, you now have like a twisted interpretation or understanding of that feeling, quote unquote. Like for me, for example, to give context, how we interpreted love as a child was based on how our mother treated us. And so our mother wasn't like, this lovey dovey, charismatic, passionate, mother. She was very hard, rough, cold. She came from the streets, she was a fighter, and she was always so aggressive. She was Aries, right? This fire. So my mother really definitely symbolized a fire like person, you know. And with that, me wanting to be so close to her, we got burned a lot for trying to be so close to her, you know. Um, and that made us have an understanding of, well, love is supposed to hurt to a degree. So when we were trying to look for love through people, we said, well, if they treat us like crap similarly to how our mother treated us, then we must be on the money, right? We must be on the right path. And it turns out that's not right. That's not healthy. You know, it turns out that we had to realize that our mother said she loved us, but her actions came off different, you know. And some can argue, you know, even to a degree, that our parents provided the best that they could. Yes. And that is a form of love. Yes. But if I'm feeding you and stabbing you at the same time, what kind of relationship is that? You know, on one hand, you're like, you're feeding me, I need this. On the other hand, you're hurting me because you're stabbing me while I'm eating from you. And it just gives mixed emotions, and it really psychologically messes up anybody that has a conscious brain that, you know, acts on behavioral patterns. We're talking animals, humans, like, you know, you can really see that they'll respond in a very similar way. You do this over a long period of time, they'll stop eating from you because they're tired of being stabbed. They rather be hungry than be hurt, you know. And for me, we were like that for a while, you know. But a lot of this is part of this emotional baggage that even in 2025 we carry to a degree, you know. Um, we can't sit here and really imagine that all that's behind us and everything is great. It's not. There's a large part of me that I'm still mourning, you know. I miss my mother, even though she may have hurt me or wasn't the best to me, but she was my mother. So psychologically, there's something that I can't get rid of that tells me that my mother is important, no matter how messed up it could have been or whatever. But I have to still mourn with that. I have to deal with that. I have to sit with that. You know what I mean? Especially because she's not here no more on the physical plane of this existence. So all we really have are remnants and memories, those feelings that are stored deep in our body. You know, the other day I almost had a flashback of a beating. And I was just like, no way. Like, it was weird, man. Like, I hit my hip or something on a corner or something. And then I just had this weird memory of when my mom hit me with a belt, like in a similar area. And I was like, wow, that's wild. Cause I felt like I was there again, like, you know, and then it made me a little sad because I was thinking about that memory and like, dang, the biggest memories I have of my mother are the beatings. I don't really know what that means, but to me, it's very theopoetic, you know, um, because I've really sat with this and meditated with this deeply. Like, my traumas have definitely helped me on my path, you know, of becoming. And we can't sit here and think that we aren't incredible today because we weren't hurt yesterday. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just seems like we have to go through these processes of pain, suffering, sorting it out, you know, the meanings of it and what does it mean to ourselves and how can we use it, you know, to betterment. But all that said, what do you think about this? What comes to your mind or how do you feel?
I think about the thought of being comfortable and what that looks like when you're not. So then, like, all these feelings come in because some people may argue and say, well, I didn't necessarily go through trauma and stuff like that. But if that's the case, there's some kind of like an uncomfortable event or situation, thing, uh, environment or someone makes you feel uncomfortable where your energy is just not aligned anymore. Uh, I think there's a lot to do with that because we're always trying to look for safety. Like anywhere I think you are in life, any stage, like no matter how old you are, like we're all looking for some form of safety because with that comes the comfort, like it makes me think about that. Um, but yeah, like having memories that just come in, like sometimes dark memories, memories that we might want to leave in the past, like they do show up in moments where we say, this triggered up this this memory, or like how you mentioned what you went through. And that can either make you upset or just make you laugh about it, just the way that you can more or less look at it. I think the when that happens, it's not that we're dismissing that what occurred was wrong, like it shouldn't have happened. But is that awareness of, wow, like something so small for someone to react in such a way, Because even for myself, like I can still deal with these things where the overreaction of something, you know, and then realizing that it's other factors and things, all these little variables start to connect. Maybe they have nothing to do with your reaction. And when we're holding on to certain emotions, especially anger, well, I know anger. uh, it can show up in moments where, like, none of that kind of energy is being called for. And then it's not until you put words into it or talk to somebody, write about it, whatever, that you realize, crap, I was really upset about this other thing. And then you start adding on all of these other things, and you then feel bad. You either feel bad because you might have hurt someone along the way, you said certain things, you feel bad for that. But then you start feeling guilt because you could have done something. Like you could have, in a way, like you could have stopped yourself in a way. But that takes work and practice. Like it just doesn't happen automatically. Like it has to be like this ongoing process of regulating your emotions and stuff, which many of us may not know how to do that, or are surrounded by people that just don't practice that. And instead, like for example, just being around the holidays and things like that, like these things become distractions. So if you were dealing with these things like of you trying to break patterns and starting new ones, just part of your healing, and then now you have these things that are distractions, like it's gonna either temporarily be put to the side or completely forgotten because now you've hit a reset. Now you're taking on some other thing that's happening and everyone is partaking in it. And so you completely forget, oh, I'm supposed to be doing the work, you know, because now you're like, oh, I'm so excited about this. Uh, what's happening on this day? or coming together with people that I haven't seen the whole entire year, or you start hearing from people that you haven't spoken to in a long time. But I think for me, like being put in those positions, I had to take a step back and just like, wait a minute, is this also part of my traumas too? Like for me, being a huge people pleaser and then now having the holidays included, like, do I genuinely like want to participate in this? And does the other person know that they're doing or causing harm in a way because you're completely gone the whole year, and then all of a sudden you hear from people just around the holidays. Like it's like we're being pushed like a herd to, you got these bright lights just blinking, like how they have in sitcoms, they have the audience, and then behind the cameras they have the sign that says applause. I feel like that's what's happening when it comes to holidays, where this sign is blinking and telling people, feel the joy, be happy, and things like that. Like it's a distraction. Go shop, 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 shop. Not until it's over, then it's like, oh, yeah, okay. Now I got to deal with a number of things on top of what I was supposed to be working on. And then it just pushes you even way back. And then that's how you start moving towards the rest of the year. And so I started to notice that, like, for myself, like, wait a minute, like, this is a huge pattern that's happening. Like, I need to stop. I need to stop participating in the things that don't bring enlightenment or just like this. I don't know how to say it, but just like helping me to see a different way of doing things and not just more of, well, you have to follow what society is doing, And so, yeah, like I find these things interesting. It's almost as if things cannot be just like one-sided or just black and white. Like you have to step into that gray area in order to make sense of what's happening. And then also, not being so absolute to choosing just like one perspective and not seeing that there's just like a myriad of just so many different ways that it doesn't matter as long as I know that I'm not trying to harm myself, and then also I'm not trying to harm others.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. Definitely. Thank you for that. You made us think of how do we, as public space community members, create safe spaces for ourselves on an everyday basis. And it reminds us that we should dedicate time to creating a physical or emotional sanctuary where, we feel secure and safe temporarily. Um, we leave it up to your imagination where that space may be in your home or how it may look, but we all should have our own form of safe space where we can come into that space with these things to, like you were saying, regulate our emotions, express ourselves, let things out, whether through journaling, audio journaling, drawing, art, music. There's so many ways to express that. Really, it's just all up to how you feel. That's why it's hard to sit here and say exactly what to do. I'm sure fellow path makers understand this concept that you can't tell people exactly what to do. You have to come up with these creative, very like much mythical, parable type story ways, allegory story ways to express knowledge to people, because everyone's going to interpret it in their own way, you know? So there's great mastery when you can create things like that. Because the ancients, the great thinkers from early millennia and whatnot, they thought in this kind of way where they didn't think absolutely, um, you know, like this is absolutely how you do it. They were thinking more like this is a roundabout the kind of way you want to think about going about it. It's two different things, and so in our safe spaces, we can wrestle these things. We can connect to our roots. We would highly suggest having an altar in your safe space. An altar can be a simple space cut out with pictures and items and artifacts that mean things to you. Some people put pictures of their loved ones. Some people put books or, amulets and different things. The altar really is just a focal point, right? For us to use our mind and our free will to manifest things, incredible things over long periods of time. We always go back to our altar as a update, a refinement, a remembering. Please.
That really sparked something in me because it's like if, let's say, you do have an altar, it can also, for me, like it can be used as a way to express yourself outwardly. So let's say if you're not accustomed to talking to yourself throughout the day and giving yourself like positive affirmations and things, like this would be the place to go to. And if like us, like we're very much more like into having physical things and touching things, like it can be like, I don't know, like what do you call those animated, they're not statues, the pops, right? Like even like have it decorated the way that you want, like with your most favorite things and things like that. Like there's just not a right way to kind of do it. But now it made me think about how I can go about it and trying to create a certain space. It could be a corner, whatever it is, but an altar. Because I think before when I had started that journey, um, like it just kept changing, and I didn't like leave room to kind of dedicate time to that. So like once it changed, um, like it didn't. Let me rephrase that. So when I was focusing on the unnecessary things, I lost touch or focus on recreating my altar in a different space because my mind was more focused on the the events that were happening. And that was also something that I was thinking about when you were talking, like when someone in the moment, like they're in that blackout stage where it's like, when I say blackout, meaning like I can't think about anything that's positive, or I can't even think about the things that I was listening to that were helping me either meditate, like doing all these different things, like in the moment of that blackout. Like, yeah, it can be difficult to kind of get into that or just kind of snap out of it in a way that you don't harm yourself or others. Because I think about the people that are constantly surrounded by this heaviness, right? That even if they were to create a space, maybe someone comes in and just like destroys it or something out of malignant, behaviors and things, because they're obviously going through their own traumas, but they don't know it. So it's like, what do we say to people that want to have these spaces or join certain things, but it's like they're being constricted, they're being held down, and they feel like they don't have a choice. And they're like, well, maybe someday, maybe in a few months or in the future, when this situation changes, I'll escape it and then I'll go from there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very complicated issue that you bring up, right? Um, and what we would say to that is when people are ready, that's when, it'll happen. When people connect with their roots, connect with a deeper sense of self, when they embrace their intuition and start, listening to that advice from their intuition, um, when they start taking accountability for things they've done, said, not done, not said, um, like these things start to align and make the right conditions for when someone's ready to say join public space or be someone's true authentic friend or actually love somebody outside themselves. Like these things have to take place in some sort of way in everyone's life for them to be able to go outward, because we've been learning that the biggest problems in the world are not external, they're actually internal. Like people are dealing with things that we just don't see, and that's why today's gathering is really focused on the unseen, like emotions you can't see, energy you really can't see, traumas you can't see, but they're there and we know they're there, so when people are ready, that's when that can happen. And all we can do is be genuine to ourselves. Have we done these things for ourselves? Have we gone inward? Have we battled with ourselves? And do we continuously do it? All us path makers understand that it's an endless journey. It doesn't stop. And this is a whole different framework, right? Compared to what we're indoctrinated with in society. And what we're talking about is this framework of you don't rely on other, you go inward and rely on yourself because that aspect of self is intertwined with the very thing that created everything in the foreseeable and knowable universe, as well as the unforeseeable and unknowable universe. So that's why that's so priority for people to slow down and draw back, disconnect slowly, and reconnect with themselves. You know, tap into those unseen things like emotions, feelings, traumas, you know, um, even our shadows. We can't see our shadows all the time, you know. So you know, anyone that's struggling with those dense things, I mean, it comes down to you're choosing to hang on to these things. As crazy as that may sound, we all are choosing. We have the power. This is a very disrupting statement and thought because a lot of people believe they're waiting for a knight in shining armor. They're waiting for people. They're waiting for their Messiah. They're waiting for their Christ. They're waiting for their God to come in their life physically and save them. But this is a very childlike fantasy. And it exists because of fear. People are so afraid. So they believe in this, right? But from a person like myself and many others out there, who have decided to step further off path, you know, we've been able to see that it's not it's not all like that. Like you can change your perspective. Things shift when you change your perspective. Your matrix, your reality changes. We don't have to do what they said we have to do. This is a very disrupting notion as well. And a lot of people may push back and say, this is very like rebellious, and not everyone has this kind of rebellious spirit. There's a lot of people that wish to follow the rules, Rules exist to protect and save people. Yes. But what happens when these rules are manipulated in an unseen way? What happens when you have unseen forces manipulating your outcomes of results, putting you directly by design into poverty, pushing you further and further, quicker and quicker to death? What happens then? That is when this rebellious spirit has to come from and emerge from within to say, no, enough is enough. This is when we start to become ready to start analyzing and setting boundaries. This is when we start to look at ourselves and say, no, I'm not a monster. No, I'm not ugly. No, I'm not horrible. And no, I'm not a sinner. These are all things that are existing to keep me in a state of oppression, keep me in a state of slavery, keep me in a state of hunger, poverty, you know? And so this space, public space, strives to allow people to see it differently, just have a different perspective or outlook on things. Just try it
Mhm.
on, just just let it take effect just a little bit and see how it changes you, see how it changes what you're doing, this is not intended to colonize you. If that's everyone's fear, you can rest assured we don't want to colonize you. We want to set you free so that you're not colonized. So you think for yourself. Don't think how Aaron or Jasenia or one person thinks. Like you think for yourself. That's a very powerful thing. And to the people that are in power and want to keep control, that is threatening. And we have to be conscious of this, you know. The late Marcia L. Atheist Reed, Marcella Atheist Reed, excuse me. Love her work. And it was her that really put me onto this idea of these sacred orgies, kind of like when you have people that are coming together talking about things that empire does not like, like these things are just nasty, they're wrong, so she named it like these orgies, these sacred orgies, people coming together to have these dialogues to talk about the things that empire doesn't want us to talk about, you know and she has so many other things in her work that I love, but that one really stands out to me because we really feel like public space was inspired by that notion of let's gather, against empire. Let's gather and talk about the things empire doesn't want us to talk about, you know. And this even goes for like religion, because a lot of us are religiously traumatized and we're processing these things and trying to re-understand and reimagine who we are and what we can be beyond these traumas, right? These religious traumas. So even with that, that's, again, supporting this kind of work of coming together in a very threatening faction, right? Like
Mhm.
digitally coming together to talk about things is more threatening than protesting on the streets these days, because a protest can physically be shut down. A protest can be put as illegal or in a criminal faction, but a gathering digitally in a secure space like this, come on. They can't get in between this but so much. You know what I'm saying? But of course, this space doesn't become truly threatening until we come together and they start seeing that this space is affecting the people in a way that they are losing control. That is only when this space will become a high value target to empire. But right now, it flies under the radar globally because not enough of us are being affected by these sacred orgies, these gatherings that empire does not condone, but maybe over time it will. Maybe, maybe our thoughts may become archival notes for the future, and some young person from the future will stumble across these series of gatherings and these ideas and feel moved, feel inspired, maybe even be reminded of a time when we could get away with something like this, you know? What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, like I love this. So a word that came to mind was just this rawness. So to be in these sacred orgies, which I just find it amusing. Um, there is this sense of rawness. Like everyone comes in or can come in with, their own truths, which can also be part of their own authenticity and what that can look like with a group of people when they come together. And it creates a place where people can relate with one another. Like there's no one that's really trying to control you, in a way. But just like any space, obviously, there is the adequacy and things like that, you know. Um, and the awareness of if something is or sounds too dangerous as maybe an action maybe someone wants to take, of course, that would be something to, you know, make note of and talk about. Because you wouldn't want people to just run off and just do whatever their mind is, you know, taking them, whatever is leading them to those behaviors and things. But the way I see it, the way I see the space is like I am open to, just talk about those things that maybe I felt uncomfortable, maybe even things I don't feel comfortable telling my therapist or something like that. You know what I mean? Like there's just certain things, but obviously it is your own choice to be as vulnerable as you want because it's not about attention. It's not about seeking attention. Like I don't think the purpose of a space like this is that you already went through those hurdles of seeking attention. Like, why am I seeking attention and things like that? Like, like it's more of like sharing the humanist or if you get what I'm saying, like being human, like just coming together and just being human because we do reflect each other more or less. We do have interactions with other people that, based on the discussions and things like that, that would make you reflect and think about certain situations and how you can more or less move forward in your own life. So if someone else is sharing something, it's like, oh, yeah, like I went through the same thing. Or you realize that maybe the person, the way they responded, it's maybe not the way that you could have, you know, reacted. And so it's like it teaches you in a way. So even the themes uh, that are spoken about really just kind of open your mind. And I think that's what it is. It's when it comes to spaces and if it allows just an inch of just people being free in a way to be who they are, um, those I would say those colonizers, people that are still in that colonizing mindset, are afraid of that and the impact it would have because people will no longer entertain their disruption in society. That's that fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Deep, deep, deep. So we come to a close. Um, time flies. um, before we go, community, consider on the 13th or at least sometime this month to take a moon bath, you know, or a water ritual of some sort because Cancer is not only a crab, but a water sign. And this month with the emotions. um, they're going to be moving through us like water, and we're going to have the tendencies like crabs to want to collect things, hoard things, um, keep things together, but just be mindful. Some things maybe are not intended to stay together. Some things you're meant to disattach, decouple from, move on. So please consider that for your own sake. But moon bathing, that's an interesting one. On the 13th, under a full moon, consider taking a bath or a shower or implementing some sort of water ritual to get the most ample results from this kind of spiritual, ritualistic event. Doing this for yourself, nobody has to know. You can do this in the privacy of your own home. um, and this is also a form of nurturing yourself, so please keep that in mind. This month in January, the first month of 2025, we need to be considering to nurture ourselves, to set the pace for the rest of the year. So please consider that. Do things that nurture you, obviously in good portion. Don't overindulge, but take this time to really count your achievements. Give yourself recognition. Remind yourself of how far you've come, what you began healing and wrestling with. You know, all these things can be very helpful in helping you nurture yourself as well as process any emotions during this time, because it's going to be flowing, you know, simulating the water. You can't really control water. Anyone that knows a water sign in their life knows you cannot control water. And if you try, you will get the pressures of water as a response. So, with that said, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, be considerate. You know, a lot of people are going through a lot of hardship right now globally. This is not just in America, it's globally. And we need to keep each other in our thoughts as we are trailing off path and achieving great things in our spiritual life and our personal life. This is amazing and it doesn't take it away, but please take time to consider there are others hurting and that are not doing as good. And we need to keep them in our thoughts and send best wishes and energy, spread good energy in the world. If you're going through crazy stuff, think twice before you spread or share that stuff. Please, please. This is a small way you could do your part if you just don't spread more bullshit, more more anger, more confusion. Just if you're going through it, yes, you can go through the necessary channels to regulate these things, but you don't have to take it out on someone innocently, near you, someone that doesn't deserve that. That's not fair. So please, in this time of emotional awareness and nurturing ourselves, just take a little time to consider the other. With that said, was there anything else you wanted to say before we close out, Jasenia?
Just, thank you for allowing me to be part of the space. And I look forward to the rest of the year with, you know, um, themes that we can all more or less relate to and things. But yeah, Happy New Year.
And shout out to my Capricorns in the community. It is your month. We got a lot of Capricorns in their birthdays. They're celebrating. So we want to send definitely a lot of love and energy to our Capricorns all around the world in our community. You guys are incredible. I have a special place in my heart for my Capricorns. Um, and the world would not go as smoothly if not for a tenth of your brilliance and your ability to organize and lead. So, um, shout out to the Capricorns. If you know a Capricorn, share some love with them. They've been going through a lot. Astrologically, they just finished a whole lot of stuff. So we're so proud of them and all the achievements that they've been doing personally in their life. And on that note, Pathmakers, we'll see you next month. Later.